Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 116, Dublin edition, recording on my time. It is Thursday, 2:59. That probably means it is much earlier for you guys if you're listening to this or watching it. If you're new here on YouTube and you don't know who I am, I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. Day to day, I'm here and will be in overseas across the pond for this entire Vikings road trip, and we'll have multiple podcasts from it. So if you're on YouTube, like I said, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can rate and follow us for a lot of fun forays into a world that is not typical. Usually spending a day like this, a time like this at the TCO Performance Center. But no, we're going to answer some questions that I fielded from you guys on social media directly here. Going to get into JJ McCarthy, going to talk about Carson Wentz. We'll have some thoughts on the Steelers game, and then, preview a little bit of the Browns even next week. And looking forward to getting into all that. I'll talk a little bit about the journey over here, what it's been like bouncing around town, seeing Vikings fans, seeing Steelers folks. Cannot wait to get into all of it. If you're new here and you don't know, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. It's run by some really good people who are also Vikings fans. Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. Those guys love this team. Been talking to them as I've journeyed abroad here. They can't wait to listen to the game on the Vikings Audio Network. So always appreciate their support. The show is also sponsored by Unreal. I had to bring it across the pond. I've got, quarter zips, hoodies. It's the nicest apparel that I have with me. Was really worried when you check a bag when you're gone for this long, which is, you're always risking it in that regard. But I'm worried. I'm like, if I don't get my own real stuff, I don't know what I'm going to wear. It's just become it's what you're used to wearing. So they've got limited edition hoodie drops. They've had a couple, a Dublin edition, a London edition. You guys can find those at the website in the link in the description below. All right, we'll get right into it. You guys, if you haven't heard, I was on KFAN, talked a little bit about travel snafu, but we made it. Flew Aer Lingus, not sponsored by Aer Lingus, but it was solid. The experience, they got off the runway fast. Not a ton of turbulence. Seats were more comfortable than you might imagine for Aer Lingus. It wasn't too cold on the plane. That's always a concern. You guys know. And then, one of the big things for me, we could talk about leaning the chair back or stepping out in the aisle before other people. We could go down those roads, but that's not for today. The one thing I will say, sometimes on these long flights, whether it's domestic or international, the flight attendants just have no regard for your shoulder. You're leaning because you're kind of dozing off and they just ram your shoulder. There wasn't any of that, which you really appreciated from the Aer Lingus staff. So just wanted to start there. Landed really early this morning. Took a while to check in. It is what it is. You waste the time. You try not to go nuts as you haven't slept in 48 hours. And the best thing, when you haven't slept in 48 hours, the best thing to do, obviously, is to record a podcast. But stepping off the plane, immediately there are balloons that are yellow and black for the Steelers, that are purple and gold for the Vikings. I'd say it felt a little more Steelers-ish to me, and that's probably not a surprise because the Steelers have rights here in Ireland. So again, not a crazy surprise. I believe Dan Rooney and that ownership group has ties to this area, to this region, and has done a lot of work here. But beyond the balloons, there's flags, there's advertisements. You're walking around town, you see Heinz advertisements with Steelers. There's murals. You go through the main city center and it's just bar after bar, pub after pub, as I probably should be calling it. And I have seen a bunch of Vikings fans out, so I can't wait to see what the split is in the stadium. That's going to hold 75,000 people, and you talk to people around town, and it sounds like it's sold out. I was eating breakfast this morning, and trust me, we're going to get into this Irish breakfast. We're going to break that down analytically, as we always do here on the Alec Lewis Show. But was eating next to somebody, and they're talking about how, they live in London, they commuted, they've spent 260 pounds on a ticket that's like one row above the top. So definitely you get the feel like, I mean, Dublin hasn't had an event of this scale that they feel like is worldwide, has worldwide relevance, and you just kind of get that feel. I mean, it's been interesting. Like you go get you go to their version of a 7-Eleven, and they got the newspapers, and it's football on the pages of the newspapers. So pretty interesting. Specific to the Vikings, because I know some of you guys have questions, the team is flying Thursday night U.S. time, and they will arrive Friday morning in Dublin. They will go directly from that flight to the practice field. And you guys might be like, why would they do that? This has been the strategy that they've taken since Kevin O'Connell and Tyler Williams, the director of health and performance, got here. Really, it sounds like, just talking to those guys and listen to a lot of their approach internally, the less amount of, the less amount of time you're here, the longer it takes, obviously, to get acclimated, and it takes multiple days to get acclimated. So their thought process with it is, if we're gonna come, last minute ish, not because they're coming last minute, but if they're gonna do what they've done, which is take this short trip, then there's no sense in trying to get fully acclimated, but you might as well keep the juices flowing. They will have an espresso barista style machine when those guys get off the plane. There are individual hydration programs for each player. So this stuff is planned out to a specific degree that is almost pretty wild. This short arriving a couple days before is the approach they've taken. They've won both games, so that's given them no reason not to take the approach. The hotel they're staying at, the Shelburne, is one of the nicest hotels in Dublin. I asked some people for Rex, and they're like, go to the Shelburne. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be drinking a Guinness probably the night before the game with Brian Flores, even as enjoyable and fun as that would be. Let's get right into the questions, and we'll start. We'll wade into the JJ McCarthy and the Carson Wentz stuff that you guys probably are yearning for me to get to. But I'll start not with that. User on X said, Blue108765 asked, what's the percentage of fans looking like so far, jersey color wise? I mean, it is crazy early, and so I mean, whether this gets aggregated or not, I guess I don't mind that much, but it feels like for every 7 Steelers fans, you got 2 Vikings fans. Like, that's kind of the split right now. I don't know if that means, like 35% or something like that, but again, you're not having slept, that math is probably atrocious, but that's why I write anyway. That's just how it feels. Feels like there's definitely, I've seen more Steelers fans out and about. Now, again, is it because, and this is no slight to Pittsburgh, I love Pittsburgh, Permani Bros, and the whole deal. Like, maybe they're like, we should just leave Pittsburgh and we go to Dublin right now. I don't know. We'll see. And I will keep you guys abreast of that on social media. In speaking to some of the Viking staff a couple months ago, maybe a few weeks ago, their opinion was that, like, the Vikings could near up to 40%. That feels maybe a little bit lofty, but we'll evaluate it for sure. And again, the Steelers have league granted rights here, and that's an interesting layer kind of what the NFL has done internationally, is that these teams have different kind of footholds in these specific areas. And it's also been kind of interesting. Like, I saw the Chiefs have a footprint in a bar here, and the Packers, I believe, do as well. So it's just kind of it's just wild, the level of takeover. Couple of the next questions. Mark asked, what is my favorite aspect of a fry up? Which I had to look that up because I didn't know what that meant. And then Matt Connor asked, Irish breakfast, full English breakfast, or something else. So a fry up, I guess, is the English breakfast. Is that, if that's not right, correct me in the comments. I am the classic American. But if you haven't been following on X this morning, or maybe in the middle of the night for you guys, again, time zones really tough. I posted a picture of my breakfast, which was I ordered the full Irish breakfast. I mean, it came with a plate of meats and I mean, I think it was the white pudding, black pudding. Didn't really know what that was on the plate. It's got eggs, got toast with butter. And I was highly enjoying it. But I put a picture of that on X, and I will continue to document the travels there. If you're not following me, it's at Alec_Lewis, and then doing even more on Instagram. So at Alec Lewis Show, our show's Instagram account. It's kind of, I mean, I'll have tons of pictures and stuff a day. The Vikings practice tomorrow. I'll have stuff from there, from the press conference. So please, you can go follow that stuff. But again, I like this this Irish breakfast. It was kind of a bold thing for me. I usually stick to the staples. I'm not venturing out. I got to stay healthy. Got to be hydrated. You know how it goes. This is a business trip for me. But whether it was the Irish sausage, I think the bacon. Rashers. Let me look this up real quick. The bacon rashers. That's what they're called. Those two, if I'm not mistaken, that was my favorite thing on there. But it was pretty good. The man orchestrating the restaurant was trolling Americans as one does. So it was kind of your run-of-the-mill breakfast with the second coffee of the day. And I've only had two. Again, it's afternoon. Probably need a couple more to be able to make this whole thing through. But I enjoyed the Irish breakfast. I would do it again. Sent a picture to my parents. I think they're worried about my workout habits, but we'll figure that out for another time. Next question. And here we go. We're going to dive right into it. You guys have been here long enough. Heard me ramble for 12 minutes. Nick Miller, the always trusty Nick Miller, has asked two questions. Number one, does Kevin O'Connell believe he can win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz as his QB1? Then the second question, how different is Jersey Mike's menu in Dublin? I haven't seen a J Mike's, but probably because of the sponsorship, they got something going on. Okay, back to number one, the question that probably is on a lot of people's minds in some capacity or some form. Nick asked, does Kevin O'Connell believe he can win a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz as his QB1? The first thing I'm going to say to this is not a direct answer to that question. And I don't even know if I'll direct answer that question in general because it's really hypothetical. But like, I think, a lot of people have been, it's easy to get way ahead of things with the quarterback situation. J.J. McCarthy has not yet practiced coming back from the ankle sprain. And so it's not as if he's practicing fully and the Vikings are sticking with Carson Wentz. We have not reached that juncture, and until we reach that juncture, it's a lot of hypothetical. It's a lot of conjecture. I've written about it. And so I obviously think it's important. It's a critical discussion point. It's the topic that we all probably have curiosities about. But that question just made me feel like, whoa, like let's all take a step back here. The next couple things that I want to say on this. So I understand the passion from all sides. If you are listening to this and you are on the side of, we drafted JJ to be our franchise quarterback, we only got to see him 2 games. This guy has to play to develop. He's got to be back in there. If that's your opinion, totally understand it. If your opinion is this is a win now league, I want to see this team win. If Carson gives the team the best chance right now with the complexion of the locker room, like, I can understand that perspective too. The couple things I do want to say, in real time, both week 1 and week 2, it obviously did not feel great watching the offense. And it wasn't great. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that 7 of the 8 quarters were miserable, brutal, whatever tagline you want to put on it. But if you really peel and pull back through the layers of the tape and become mindful of the dynamics at play from a circumstances, a competition, an inventory in the opposing team. If you peel layers back on all that, I don't think JJ was nearly as bad as maybe it felt like in those first two games. That's just what I'd say. Now, I have written the statistic of, the poor throw percentage. He had a 6% higher poor throw percentage through the first 2 weeks than any other qualified quarterback. And that's, a referendum on accuracy, on footwork and rhythm and all that stuff. But I say that, and I can't say that and also not mention that J.J. McCarthy did not have Christian Darrisaw. Ryan Kelly got hurt in one of the games. In the first game, the receiver detail was not even remotely close to up to par to what we've all become used to in watching this offense and watching guys like Justin Jefferson. And if you don't mention all that stuff, I don't consider it like a truthful evaluation of the situation. And then I also would just say, and I've had to remind myself this too as I'm going through it, J.J. McCarthy did not play a game for 609 days, like a real live Bullets game for 609 days. So do you expect, as good as his mechanics or his processing ability may have looked in training camp or as bad as it looked, like what and it was uneven. I guess I should just give you the evaluation. Like, it was uneven throughout all of training camp for sure. When you haven't played a game in 609 days and you're not only are you playing at the same speed of game, it's a faster speed, players move faster, things move quick. Like, to expect J.J. McCarthy to just adapt and thrive immediately would have been foolish from all of our perspectives. So all of that stuff I want to mention on the J.J. front. Now on the Carson Wentz front, it definitely felt somewhat fluid watching the game in week 3, and he did progress and hit players, and he did throw with some anticipation. He was effective over the middle, and the offense definitely looked more like what we've grown accustomed to with a Kevin O'Connell offense that has produced 4,000 yard passing seasons. That's just it's unquestionable. But again, he did have Christian Darrisaw this week. He did play against a Cincinnati Bengals defense that is not at all. It has a lot to prove. He did have the benefit of defensive touchdowns. And like this weekend, for example, he's going to have Jordan Addison back. He's going to have Ryan Kelly back. This Pittsburgh Steelers defense has given up more explosive plays than all but one other NFL team. So if it looks great, like, again, you have to contextualize all of it. And again, you guys might be sitting there like, man, you're just both sidesing it in a ton of ways. But I just view it as is providing the necessary context, to think very clearly about this whole situations. I to get back to the initial question, Nick, these things tend to have a way of working themselves out one way or another to where it feels pretty clear one way or another. That's just like, you think about the New York Giants, for example, not as a comparison, it's just different situations. But it got to a point with the Giants where it was pretty clear that the offense was untenable with Russell Wilson. And so they go to Jackson Dart. And you can and we can argue that's a whole separate conversation if they're going to Dart too early and all that stuff. But just the point and underlining is and italicizing it and bolding it and highlighting it is typically these things have a way of working themselves out. Whether it's player has too great of a performance, player has too poor of a performance, player doesn't return to health. Like, there's just a lot of dynamics that I get wanting to go nuts about it. But I would also end this conversation here with this. There is a lot with JJ, with Carson Wentz, with the locker room, with the expectations, with the short-term priorities and long-term priorities that Kevin O'Connell has to be mindful of. It's a lot to balance. Again, there is the locker room and what the locker room feels. There is the confidence of the young quarterback who's only 22 years old. There is, to Nick, your question, a real honest opinion about how real things can ultimately get long term. And again, Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the team, the play caller, the guy who has the most acumen and experience with quarterbacks as anyone else in this organization, probably, besides Josh McCown, who played for a billion years. He has to be mindful of all of it. I know he is mindful of all of it. I know it means a lot to him to operate the right way in all respects. And then lastly, just the last thing I'll say is, and this is just my opinion, And I mean, whatever. But like, if I were to, I'll just use myself. If I were to write off JJ after seeing him perform through 2 games the way I like, that would be, it would be foolish. It would be dismissive. It would be short-sighted and all that. So, regardless, like there's no writing off JJ McCarthy and what he is or can be after seeing 2 games without his elite left tackle, without Jordan Addison, without the full extent of what they wanted the surroundings for him to be. So, yeah, I hope that, that explains it. I will say Carson Wentz this weekend against Pittsburgh. We'll see how creative Pittsburgh gets. Sometimes they can just play it straight. They have implemented some more quarter stuff, but if they play single high against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, they're going to get torched, and Carson Wentz is probably going to look pretty good. And then Cleveland is an entirely different beast next week. So if we get there, and if Carson is, it's a lot of ifs, which is why, again, you got to just, I mean, as cliche it is, it's just only worth really staying in the present. Cleveland will be an entirely different test with what they have on their front, with how aggressive they can get on the back end. So it's cliche, but right now, like, it's week to week, and to want broad proclamations about how Kevin O'Connell feels. I think that's just getting way far ahead of it, frankly. So yeah, that'll do it for that answer. We're going to get a word from a quick sponsor, and we will be right back with more answers to questions.
She's Jen, the ultimate Vikings fan.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Vikings Jan Show Fan Show. My special guest today is Jared Allen. So, Jared, who you got for the Vikings game this week?
Minnesota Vikings.
Me too. So that's our show. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the Minnesota Lottery, who reminds you this could be your year. Play the new
Vikings
Scratch Game for a shot at $100,000, game tickets, and more. Minnesota Lottery. I'm in. Must be 18 or older to play.
All right, I'm taking a sip of this water bottle they gave in my room. I've never seen anything like this. Irish still water, WB Yeats. I'm going to take a quick sip of this. I guess. I mean, Irish water, I trust it. All right, next question comes from CFCJ_J. What plans you got for the spare time you have in London next week? Should get along to Chelsea Benfica. I probably pronounced that wrong. Benfica on Tuesday night. First, I would say I would go to Chelsea. I would love to do that. If you got tickets and you need somebody to come with you, holler. I would do that in a heartbeat. As far as plans, there's some story stuff we're working through, meeting up with people and kicking some stuff around. So I would just say stay tuned to The Athletic as we go through this journey of being overseas for 10 plus days. And then meeting up with some friends. Our marketing director at the Alec Lewis show is going to come out, and then have some friends, college folks over there. So looking forward to that. But again, if you got the Chelsea ticket, I'll scrap the plans and whatever I got to do, frankly. Next question comes from DJ Walsh. Outside of Dublin, where would you most like to visit in Ireland? Great question. Believe DJ, you're based over here, so I need your advice. The Cliffs of Moher, am I pronouncing that right? But that's probably it. That would be, I don't know if that's the right answer, but if we're talking Ireland, that's probably what I would say. Purple Nurple asks, how are you feeling after putting down 4 sausages for breakfast? We talked about it. I'm feeling fine. I mean, we're hours after at this point. I'm feeling fine, from the sausages. In general, not having sleep. I mean, it's rough out here. But complaining while you're on a 10-day overseas trip to watch football and this team in what is a fascinating journey of a season, we ain't doing that here on the Alec Lewis show at all. But here we go. Purple Nurple, second question. Do you think this passing game opens up with Addison back? Seems like teams have been doubling Jefferson pretty heavily, and Addison should take advantage like he has in the past. Yeah, I mean, when these two guys are on the field together, it leaves defenses in such a bind. They really have to play with 2 high safeties, which, I mean, not only does that open up opportunities, you can isolate a linebacker with TJ Hawkinson, you can isolate linebackers running back, but it also makes it easier to run the football. And the Vikings right now are running the football with Jordan Mason at a very efficient clip. So this is the offense where as jokey and as often as it's probably been said of like the pick your poison style, if they can continue to run the ball with Jordan Mason at the efficiency level and rate that they are right now, and they have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison healthy to really force defenses to be very mindful with putting an umbrella over the top, I mean, it becomes a really fun offensive situation so long as the signal caller is progressing in time and is throwing the ball accurate, and so long as the offensive line is staying healthy and doing what they showed, a glimmer of what's possible last week. So great question. But yeah, I definitely, I don't know if Addison's going to play 100% of the snaps this weekend. They like reintegrating these guys, but he was the most impressive offensive player in training camp. Don't even really think it was that close. It's felt like, and everybody internally has reiterated this feeling that Jordan just kind of has seemed on a mission from the time the spring began. So the guy's just a special separator. He can play all three positions. Just a really, really, I mean, he's a special talent. And then you pair, like, the two things I do want to mention. One, Adam Thielen has done a ton of dirty work in the blocking phase. So while, I've received a lot of tweets of like, well, that was worth it. I mean, part of it is he's done a lot of dirty work that just doesn't show up in the stat sheet. The other aspect is Jalen Naylor has been exceptional. And I if I'm not mistaken, I've said this. Kevin O'Connell this past week said that Jalen Naylor was showing up on tape and was open seemingly every route he runs. And I would say this, one of my predictions for this game would be if the Steelers get creative and they want to play too high and they want to play quarters, I would not be shocked to see a deep ball hit to Jalen Naylor for 50 plus. That's just how I feel about it, because oftentimes if these teams play quarters, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll understand the Vikings will run a route to make one of these safeties bite and then run the receiver right behind them. And typically it's the fastest one. And I mean, Jalen Naylor competes for that tag. So, I mean, they view it, and they've said this, like they have 4 starters at receiver right now. And with the way Jalen Naylor has run his routes, and with the impact Adam Thielen has had around the line of scrimmage and some of those condensed sets, you can kind of understand it. Let's see what else we got. Purple Kool-Aid. How much can J.J. McCarthy develop from a few weeks of not being the starter? I mean, look, I the best development opportunity at this point feels like JJ being on the field. I mean, that's just the situation, and it feels pretty clear. But I mean, I do think, I mean, there's always in any line of work, like when you're not in the fight and in the fire and you can take a step back, it just there is a perspective. Now, again, Jaden McCarthy sat the whole season last year, so he had this opportunity, and you really need to, you just really need to see live bullets to be able to acclimate to the speed of what the NFL game is. Now, if the Vikings coaching staff, and they haven't talked about this, but if they deem that, like there are some mechanical lower half stuff that need to be fixed on the fly, then that stuff, it almost makes sense for him not to be playing as you're trying to fix some of that stuff on the fly. But then you wade into the conversation of, do they even feel like that's the case? And then B, is, how feasible is it to fix something like that midseason? Those are entirely different questions. Couple things on this Steelers game first. Really 3 keys for me. The first, because we're not going to have a Steelers writer, and I've watched the film, so I feel like why not give you guys a little glimpse at how I'm thinking about this game. The number one most critical aspect of this game is going to sound cliche, but cliches exist for a reason. It's ball security. The Steelers have a culture of turnover creation that compares to what the Vikings have done under Brian Flores. The Steelers have produced more turnovers, have forced more turnovers to the opposing team in the last 3 years, more than any other team. And that's just a easy way for a team that is more talented, like the Vikings, to make this a closer game than it probably should. So, Jordan Mason has to be on the screws with his ball security. Miles Price returning has to be dialed in with his ball security. Receivers after the catch, those guys, the linebackers, Patrick Queen and Cole Holcomb, the defensive backs, whether it's Darius Slay, whether it's Brandon Eckel, Joey Porter, like those guys are going to be hunting for the football. And so the Vikings must be very in tune to ensuring they're not putting the ball on the turf, specifically from a fumble perspective. And then Carson Wentz is going to have to make optimal decisions throwing the football through the air. So that's number one. Number two, it's this Aaron Rodgers matchup is going to be pretty interesting. Last year, the Vikings tried to throw really everything at him. It was a lot of late disguise. It was a lot of two-man, which they barely had run before. And Aaron Rodgers has the bandwidth to adapt on the fly. If he gets a bead of what you're trying to do to him coverage-wise in a specific situation, he will pluck at that. There were a bunch of times last year where Aaron realized that Stephon Gilmore was just going to play off coverage. And so he just dispersed the ball quickly to Garrett Wilson for 10 yards a clip. And eventually the Vikings just tightened up because they weren't willing to give those easy 10-yard completions, which was understandable. And the other thing with Aaron is he'll enact no huddle on the fly, which makes it harder for this Vikings defense to communicate and disguise the way they want to. He'll also do and incorporate some sugar huddle, which that's a term really just, it's like where they huddle and then they blitz to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball as quick as possible. And again, that takes the Vikings out of some of their late disguise where they start with one high and rotate to two and then rotate back to one. And so it makes it easier not only on the quarterback, but also on the receivers as they're adjusting routes. So, how effective the Vikings can be in that matchup of, spinning the dial from a coverage standpoint and then obviously getting pressure. We'll see about Javon Hargrave with his chest, but feel like Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez are going to have to be huge against an offensive line that doesn't blow you away. We'll see about Andrew Van Ginkel's activity or presence or lack thereof. And if it's not him, you're really going to need Dallas Turner to continue to come on the way it's looked like he started to in week 3. So that's key number 2. And then again, I've touched on this a couple times, but I'm fascinated to see how the Steelers try to cover the Vikings in this game. They traditionally play a lot of one high and cover 3 and cover 1. And what that really means is there's one deep defender across the field, and you can really beat the defense up the seams and on crossing routes, and the Vikings do a great job scheming some of that stuff up. So if the Steelers stay in that, I have a very hard time believing that the Vikings will not be able to move the ball down the field. If the Steelers play with 2 high safeties and play some quarter stuff, then it's going to be huge for Jordan Mason to run the football effectively to try to get them out of 2 high. And then that's where I start to see TJ Hockenson one-on-one against linebackers, certain receivers isolated on one side. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Jalen Naylor on like some bait routes kind of down the field. So those are kind of the 3 things with this game that I'm looking forward to. For more on that, we're going to have a preview story at The Athletic, had a back and forth with our Steelers writer, Mike DeFabo. And then, we'll have comprehensive coverage from the game. Looking forward to it. Moving to London afterwards, and we'll have a podcast from either after the game, Dublin, early Monday morning or what have you. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for being here. As always, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. Grab your Unreal anywhere. They got it at Shields. They got it on the Unreal website in the link in the description. As high quality of stuff as I have makes me look better than probably I should. And And yeah, if you're new here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, you can rate and review and all that good stuff. From Dublin, episode 116 of the Alec Lewis Show. One to remember as we are jet lagged to the max. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We will talk to you very, very soon.